years ago, I was home alone at nighttime. I was watching TV in the living room when I heard the doorbell ring. Whenever I hear the doorbell ring, especially if I'm home alone, I'm cautious to answer it. I walked up to the peephole without turning on the porch light so that they don't know if anyone is actually home or not. And I look through. It's really dark, but I can see a small figure, more like a black blob. I don't know its definite shape, but it had to be around 3-4 feet, doing like a dancing motion, dipping down and oscillating its arms outward. Think of like a person moving their arms like wings, sort of gracefully. It was dark outside, but this figure was more opaque, so I could see this going on. After a few seconds, I stopped looking through the peephole because it was too freaky to look at. I regained some courage and looked back through, and whatever it was gone. To this day, I still don't know what it was, and I get freaked out just thinking about it. I don't know, I wonder what it would have looked like if you had turned the lights on, though. That's really weird. If something is 3 or 4 feet tall, that would put them about the size of a child, so I don't know how many children that size would be out ding-donging people late at night and just dancing in the peephole. Super weird. I don't know, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't have to. Next. I've posted this one a couple of times before, but seems fairly relevant. A personal experience that I had a while back that still kind of messes with my head when I reread it. I'll be the first to say that all this stuff could have taken place in my head. The mind is a freaky thing and can play up some pretty trippy tricks on you. Whatever. I was scared as a kid, and my dad had always told me that in life you should not be scared of a ghost. Fear the living because they can actually hurt you. In my late teenage years, I came into some money after my father committed suicide, and I received an inheritance from him. At the time of my dad's passing, he and my mom owned a cabin in Oregon by Mount Bachelor. The cabin had been put up for sale since my mom could no longer afford the payments, and renting it out was not covering the payments either. The cabin was set to go on the market for sale in less than a month, and was in the process of finalizing all the paperwork with the realtor and lawyer. So for that month's time, the cabin was not going to be rented out any longer, and was going to be vacant. I saw this as a chance to get away for a while, and clear my head in the light of all the things going on. I quit work. I packed up my snowboarding gear, grabbed my dog, and headed up in my dad's car that he had willed to me, to the cabin. Now this was our family cabin that my parents rented out throughout the year when we were not using it. I had keys to the cabin, and I also had a code for the alarms, so I did not feel the need to stop at the rental management company and advise them of my stay. This has nothing to do with the story, but I just felt the need to mention that anyway. My first 2 days at the cabin were normal, and nothing of the unusual happened. Spent my days playing with my dog in the snow, snowboarding, and evenings playing PlayStation or listening to music or drinking and smoking out on the balcony. I had already stocked up on food, cigarettes, and liquor, so I was pretty much a shut-in, aside from the occasional out to hit the slopes. With my dog as my company, and DVD/PlayStation as my entertainment, I was quite content, and started to feel relaxed after all the drama that had preceded my outing. The cabin itself was 2 stories. Bottom story had the living room and the side guest bedroom, along with a small kitchen. Upstairs had another 2 rooms, along with the walkout balcony always creeped me out. Anyhow, the third day came around, and I was going through my usual routine of playing with my dog. His name was Midnight, by the way, and he has also since passed. Playing games and watching DVDs. That day, it was a pretty heavy snowfall, so I did not feel like trekking down the hill to the main road in my car and decided to stay in. That's when things started getting a bit weird. In our area, there were only 2 other cabins adjacent to ours, maybe a block away from each other. All the other cabins aside from these 2 were around a mile away from ours. Surrounding us was mostly forest and very tall pine trees. Tall. This is important for later on. Both these cabins were empty, and from the past couple of days I knew that no one was currently staying there. Around midday, while outside with my dog, I noticed what looked like footprints in the snow around the area surrounding our cabin. It was still snowing, so the footprints looked semi-fresh, like someone had been there in the last 20 or 30 minutes before me. I thought that maybe someone was staying in the cabin near me that I may have not noticed. Maybe they were shut-ins, like me. Alright, whatever. The prints lead away from my cabin, and they disappeared into the snow toward the denser part of the trees. I disregarded the footprints and went back inside. Nighttime came around, and I decided to head to bed. My dog Midnight was laying on the bed with me when I noticed his ears perk up to a standstill listening position. That was followed by him quickly jumping off the bed and running downstairs to the living room. I lay in bed and stayed silent. I was kind of freaked out and could hear him moving around downstairs back and forth. After around 5 minutes, he ran back upstairs to me and started to do his doggy dance for the sign that he had to go pee or that he wanted to go outside. Shit. Well, fine. I can't say no to him. So we both went downstairs to the outside driveway for him to do his thing. Only he didn't want to pee. As soon as we were outside, he started to pull on his leash, trying to drag me where he wanted to go. He kept looking into the dense part of the trees where the prints had been seen earlier, but he also kept sniffing the side of the house and looking up toward the roof. After he figured out that I was not going to go where he wanted, he sat himself down and just stared into the darkness. A bit unusual for him, but alright. Maybe there were forest animals out there that he wanted to chase down. But fuck this. I did not want to chance anything, so I pulled him back inside and we both headed back upstairs. Around half an hour later, I was lying in bed when I heard what sounded like hooves walking on my roof. It was only a series of around 6 steps, and I rationalized that it could be a pine cone falling from a tree onto the roof, or maybe a kind-hearted forest animal running around. But here's the thing. The steps seemed to be spaced apart like a man-length stride, so it was really freaking me out. Midnight also heard the noise and was quick to run to the balcony screen door, expecting for me to let him out. Alright, you know what? I'm a tough guy, and at the time considered myself to be fairly well built and strong enough to handle myself. So I grabbed my coat and shoes along with my cigarettes and flashlight and went out onto the balcony. Fuck it, right? As soon as I was outside, I lit up my cigarette and started canvassing the roof with my light. Nothing there, and the snow on top was undisturbed. I started to calm down and relax again. By the way, I'm shaking right now, and my heart is beating as hard as I'm typing this next bit. My eyes started to adjust to the darkness, and I kept smoking and just staring at the stars and trees next to our cabin. That's when I saw it. In a tree that was a little taller than our cabin, and around 20 feet from the balcony, I saw what looked like a man crouched in a squatting position in between two branches. It was squatted on one branch, and its arms were extended above its head, holding on to the branch above it. Fuck me. What the fuck is that? I wasn't sure if I was really seeing this thing, and I stood there just staring, and it sat there, motionless. I noticed Midnight stand up and start pacing behind me and lightly barking at the same time. The thing did not move. I put my cigarette out and was debating on shining the light in the thing's direction, but something in my head kept screaming not to. So I walked backwards to the inside of the room and pulled Midnight with me. Once inside, I locked the door and shined the light in the thing's direction, but there was nothing there. I shut the curtains to the screen door and retreated back to bed, but later on that night, I heard light tapping at the screen door like someone was tapping on the glass with their fingers. It was consistent, and it did not stop for nearly an hour. Midnight seemed to stare at the door, but he wouldn't go near it anymore. The weirdest part was that I had a feeling like someone was inviting me to open the door. But at the same time, I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head telling me to stay in bed and not to do it. I listened to my dad's voice and just stayed right where I was. Passed out eventually and woke up in the morning and everything was normal. The rest of the week I spent there was not eventful, and nothing else out of the ordinary happened. Wow, that's spooky. Ew. Oh man, I think you were kind of stalked a little bit by maybe a skinwalker or something. That's not normal to find a man-sized being in a tree in the middle of the night looking at you. And then the hooves on the roof, like, oh, okay. No. I gotta tell you, I would have packed up my doggy and left the next day. Moving on to the next. Okay, this next story really had me, so pay attention. About 5 years ago, my mom started dating a guy she met on a dating site. That part is fine. I had recently started dating a woman who would later become my wife, and we met online. Anyway, my wife and I never really liked this guy. We didn't think he was mean or anything like that. He was just a little creepy. He was quiet. He kept his eyes closed a lot, and occasionally said odd things like offering my wife a chocolate and then popping one in his mouth, closing his eyes and moaning as if it melted in his mouth. One time, my wife and I were visiting my mom, but she got called into work, so we waited at her house, and her boyfriend was over, but he spent the entire several hours just hanging out in her bedroom with the door closed. Just before Christmas, my mom and this guy started having some difficulties. My wife and I were visiting her for the holidays, and she dropped all of her problems on us, and we listened carefully and told her our opinions, and suggested that she would be better off without him. She already had her mind made up, though, and decided to break up with him. On Christmas Eve, we spent the night at my mom's and got up early Christmas morning to visit my dad at his house. We didn't plan to spend the night at my dad's, but we got snowed in, which was actually a nice Christmas surprise. The next day we left as soon as we could get through the snow, and my wife suggested that we stop by my mom's house on the way so we could see if she was okay. My wife just had a really bad feeling about my mom's now ex-boyfriend. My mom's car was in the driveway, but that doesn't mean much because she lives close enough to work that she often walks, and it hadn't snowed in her town. She also never locks her door, which drives me crazy. So we let ourselves in. That's when we see blood oozing out of the refrigerator's water dispenser. It had filled up the spill container and was leaking onto the floor and had made a puddle. My wife screamed and I freaked out. I fully expected to see my mom's head in that freezer. I nervously opened the freezer to find a bag of frozen cherries that had been opened, crammed into the freezer so that it fell into the ice dispenser and melted. Whew. Thought my mom had been decapitated by her creepy ex-boyfriend. Oh man, that one had me. I had to throw that one in there, guys. I just had to. It's all about how you tell the story, right? Okay. Next, I'm glad your mom was okay and she wasn't decapitated by your creepy weird boyfriend. Next, I knew a lady whose friend brought back a voodoo doll as a gift for her when she returned from vacationing in Louisiana. She didn't want it, but pretended to like it so as not to be rude. She put it in the back seat of her car, then in the trunk, and then forgot about it. One day she opened her trunk to put something else in it, and there was the doll. She was irritated with herself for not disposing of it already. She grabbed a shovel, and off she went. She found a vacant lot. She dug a hole and buried the doll. It was after that her health began to deteriorate. She ended up being bedridden and passed away from complications related to emphysema. Yes, she was a smoker, but before she passed, confided in me that she had quit smoking years before, and that she was, quote, fit as a fiddle, before burying that voodoo doll. I know another lady who took cursed rocks back from Hawaii. The outcome was eerily similar for her. Whether the items are truly bad luck or not, I would not chance messing with them at all, not even a Ouija board. And here's another little voodoo doll story attached to that. I am now much older, but this all happened one night when I was 13. My church had a fish fry in 7th grade, and I decided not to go, but to host friends after. I was playing video games when they walked into my house. I noticed one of them had a strange all-black doll in her hands. Obviously, I inquired, and they told me they had found a voodoo doll. Later, I would learn the creepy kid at school had thrown it at them. None of us bought it, so naturally we started putting our hair in it. After messing with it to no avail, we left it on the floor and turned on a movie. Later, another friend joined us, not seeing the doll and kicking it across the room. We paid no mind to it, but seconds after my friend starts crying as blood comes pouring out of his nose. Freaked out, we run out of the basement and try to move on with the night. For the next couple nights, my friends and I experienced weird events. The main two people who messed with it got the worst. The number one culprit had footsteps walking all around his room, and his door would open during the night. Along with the footsteps and doors, he would hear manly voices outside his door. His parents were lesbians. The second culprit was awoken 3 nights in a row with bloody noses. Personally, I just had very vivid dreams of family members being killed and horrifying images. Not much has happened since, and I don't really talk to those guys anymore, as we have gone on separate paths. Yeah, I think maybe just don't mess with things you don't know anything about. It may have something to do with it. It may not. It sounds like it might be, but either way, you gotta respect things and not mess with things, specifically dark things. Just saying. Next story. We had moved into my mother-in-law's home when my daughter was 4 months old. My daughter is now 38. We were a young couple, both 21, living with my best friend in his apartment when we got married. So when our daughter arrived, it was time to move to my mother-in-law's house, with backyard and baby's own room and help from the mother-in-law. She was a widow, lost her husband when my wife was 2 years old. She had a decent-sized house she purchased after her husband passed away. She was still working, while I was also working, and the wife was a stay-at-home mom. About a half year into this arrangement, my daughter started waking up screaming in the middle of the night. Since I was working, my wife got up and tried to comfort her, but always took more than an hour to comfort our daughter. This went on for 3 or 4 nights straight. Finally, my wife was sleep-deprived and frustrated, so she nudged me to get up and comfort the baby. The first night I entered her room, my daughter was standing in her crib, crying, and looking specifically at one corner. I picked her up to soothe her, and no matter what way I turned while rocking her, she kept looking at that corner. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing. Eventually, she fell back asleep. This happened for 2 additional nights, crying and looking at that corner. But the nights after that, she would cry to wake us up, but by the time I got there, she was quiet, yet still looking at that same corner. On reflection, even when we were in the apartment, as a baby, she would look up to the ceiling corner above the changing table and babble like she was talking to somebody, but not directly at us when we changed her. Because she was continuing to wake us up, approaching 2 weeks, we were both so tired. So I brought it up to my mother-in-law. She was sleeping in the front room while both our rooms are in the back. And I told her the full story. I guess I was hoping she would share the load of soothing the baby. She said, "Okay, don't worry. I'll deal with this." My mother-in-law is a deeply religious Catholic, never misses Mass, and combined with some of the superstitions from our country, believes in her powers of faith to heal small aches and pains through massage. Interestingly enough, after we told her, our daughter didn't cry out anymore. And all of us got great sleep for a week. But here's the thing. My mother-in-law never got up to soothe the baby. The crying just stopped. I was amazed. So after a couple of weeks, I asked my my mother-in-law what did she do. She simply said that she asked her late husband not to visit the baby because he was scaring her. That was it. My beloved mother-in-law passed away 7 years ago, having watched our mother-in-law struggle in her home alone with all her health issues. We moved into a bungalow since to spare my arthritic knees. During COVID, my daughter moved back home and had our grandson. And yet sometimes my grandson would babble to a specific ceiling corner of the family room when we'd change him. And we'd all say he's talking to his great-grandmother, and even now has a fondness for my mother-in-law's pictures, even though he has never met her. I think that's kind of cool, actually. It's a neat story. They're just looking out for you. Just wants to meet you and be around you. Thank you for that story. Next, I was a junior or senior in high school, so 1994 or 1995. I know that's a long time ago, but I remember this incident perfectly because it made no sense. I was reading The Color Purple by Alice Walker in my bedroom. No one else was home, and I had to go to the bathroom. I left the book on my bed. The bathroom was right down the hall. When I returned, the book was gone. I know that I left it on the bed. Still, no one was home, and someone would have had to go up the stairs past the bathroom door to get to my room. And it was probably 1 minute that the door was closed. I was very irritated because I was enjoying the book, and it had just disappeared. I asked my mother later that evening if she'd seen it, and she told me she hadn't. Several days passed, and I remember considering whether to start a different book because I read a lot at the time, but I'd like to finish the book before moving on. Then I was in my bedroom, standing up near the closet, and something fell and hit me on the head. I looked down at the object that had fallen on my head, and it was my missing book. I remember feeling weird in my stomach, like I was going to throw up, that I had seen something that I wasn't supposed to see. Creeped me out, big time. Sounds like a glitch in the Matrix. That's really weird. That is super weird and cool. Let's do another glitch. For context, I have a Polaroid wall on my shelf with at least 20 pics, but never any duplicates. If you know Polaroids, you would have to take 2 pics to get the same extra copies. Never have. Never have had duplicates, even for group pics. My boyfriend and I were going through a rough patch, and it does not validate his actions at all. But he decided to rip off 2 pictures from my wall that was from my birthday because of the events that followed on that trip. He ripped them up in front of my face. It was a very heated moment, but it was crumpled to the best you can ruin a Polaroid. The black film part was even peeling and crumbling off where the image gets printed. During the entire ordeal, I'm texting my best friend about what he's doing. I took pictures of the Polaroids before he took them from me and destroyed them. He tossed them in my trash, and this is the part that gets me. I went back into my trash and I saved them. those were my cherished memories, and I am painfully sentimental. I also felt like if I kept them, that I was standing up for myself in some kind of way. So, I know I was on thin ice if he found out that I saved them, but I put them back in my makeup bag for the time being until I tossed them into one of my 3 drawers. So a couple of days pass, and I'm thinking I have to find those Polaroids because if he found them, it would be a whole repeat. So I'm looking in my drawers, and I find them in perfect condition, along with my other pictures. I'm tweaking at this point, trying to find a way to in fact check that they're the same Polaroids. So I go back to the texts sent to my best friend, and sure enough, the Polaroids match the ones I sent him. I look in the makeup bag that I hid them in, and I still see the small pieces of black film that got ripped up. To this day, I cannot find the crumpled or destroyed Polaroids. I haven't obviously been able to validate this with my partner, since to his knowledge those pictures don't exist anymore. I know there weren't any duplicates. I just don't know if it was such a high intensity moment that something shifted. I don't know. What makes me not doubt myself is the fact that I have texts from the night, including pictures from the Polaroids, before he did it. I think that that's definitely a glitch in the Matrix, but I also think perhaps some sort of guardian angel was looking out for you and wanted you to have those pictures because they knew how important they were to you. And also, what an asshole. Guess what? You shouldn't be on thin ice. Okay? Nobody should take your memories and ruin them like that, even in a heated argument. Just saying. Okay, maybe one more. I love these. I am really freaked out by an experience my daughter and I had last week. We were selling Girl Scout cookies from a Walmart early in the morning, and we had a repeat event happen. I wasn't busy at Walmart, and we weren't selling cookies, so I told my daughter, who is 15-year-old female, to say good morning to everyone that walked by. 2 men walked out of Walmart that I had noticed walking in separately a bit earlier. As they were walking out, maybe 10 feet apart, they were not together. I told my daughter to get their attention and say good morning. She said no, because she said one guy looked scary, like a big biker guy. The other guy was on his phone, and she didn't want to be rude. But both guys had very distinct looks. Then, maybe 1 to 2 minutes later, we saw them walking out again. All parts of the scenario exactly the same, except for our reaction. We looked at each other, confused, and then talked about what the F is going on. We were both freaked out. I actually chased one of the guys to his car and asked if he had left the store twice or knew the other guy. He said no to both and looked at me like I was crazy. I have chills, like whole body chills, just writing this post. What does this all mean? It feels extra scary because my daughter and I both witnessed this glitch. There was no way for me to write this off since we both saw the exact same thing. I can't get this experience out of my head, and I need answers. I think we're talking about a time slip. I'll repeat, time slip. Glitch in the Matrix. was huge, Victorian build. I was exploring the rooms with a friend one day. One room felt dark and cold. As I stood looking around, I suddenly felt a burning sensation on the right side of my abdomen. I lifted up my shirt thinking it was a bug or like something stinging me. But instead, I found 3 bright red scratches. I got the hell out of that room. It turns out no one liked that room, with many people saying there was a dark presence there. There was another room in the same house where objects would constantly fall, seemingly all by themselves. No windows open, no vents. I asked around about it and was told that it was okay to just ask it to stop. And so I said something like, "All right, I know you're there. I respect you. So could you please stop knocking things down?" And it never happened again. Well, that is really, really unnerving because the 3 scratches, that's like a demonic thing. Like claws. Shh. Shh. That's never a good thing. 3 scratches. Sorry. But you don't live there, you just stayed there, so hopefully nothing attached to you and you could just move on with your life. Spooky. Spooky, 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 spooky. Alrighty. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. I was around 6 or 7 years old. I'm home with my sister, who was 14 or 15 at the time. We grew up in a small Texas town. Everyone knows everybody. We are home alone this particular night, and my folks let my sister babysit me frequently. We always got along due to our age gap. Anyway, it's about 8 p.m. in the winter. Deserts get pretty damn cold, so it's dark, and we are in the common room, since that's where the TV was, watching 60 Minutes or 48 Hours or hard copy or some shit. Those like 1-hour news pieces on CBS that chronicle large crimes in depth, trafficking, murderers, kidnappings, and things like that. Basically, a gritty Lifetime special. This one was a typical story. Guy next door that was quiet went on a rampage in his next door neighbor's house, mutilating them and kidnapping their young daughter. Well, the thing about our house common room was that the door leading to the backyard was a large glass door on a wall, floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing but blackness beyond it unless you have a backlight on, and we did not. The front door is on the other side of the room with a small entryway. This is a solid door, so you cannot see what is beyond it, with the glass storm door on the outside of it. About 45 minutes into this show, they're talking about the ongoing manhunt for this crazy guy, and bam, bam, bam! Front door bangs like crazy. We jump the fuck up and scream like banshees. Dead silence now. The only lights on in the house are the kitchen down the hall from the common room we were in, and the light from the TV. We start thinking something is on the porch. We had some planters and a rocking chair out there that had simply blown against the door, maybe. This was West Texas. Crazy strong winds out that way. Well, a minute or 2 of silence, and us holding each other, post-adrenaline overdose, passes. Just when we're about to declare that everything is safe, we hear the storm door on the outside of the front door close. Fuck, someone had to have opened that door to be able to bang on the front door like that. Shit, shit, shit. We are both frozen in the middle of the room, on the floor where we had been watching TV. My sister crawls over to the TV and turns it off. It was an old TV, so you had to turn turn that metal dial to switch it off, and it does that mildly loud thunk. Now, it's just us in a room dimly lit by the kitchen light down the hall. I do not remember how much time passed, with me frozen and my sister still crouched by the now off TV. But we kept making eye contact and then looking at the front door. I remember this part vividly. I am on my knees, sitting on my feet, and I turn around to look at the back wall of windows and the glass door. We hear and see the back door knob turn. It was locked on the knob, but not dead-bolted. It rattles slightly, as if someone gently trying the handle. Neither of us make a sound, just held our breath. Then, bam, 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 loud as hell. Someone is trying to force the door open, just jerking it back and forth. The whole wall of windows is vibrating violently, and I can see with each jerk of the door how my slight reflection gets fuzzy, then clear, then fuzzy. My sister flips her shit and screams bloody murder. I am still frozen on the floor. She gets up and basically drags me into her bedroom, slams the door, throws her mattress and anything she can in front of her door. Thankfully, she remembered the phone, one of those ungodly heavy beige plastic long metal antenna portable phones. We still had to direct dial the sheriff there, and in her panic, she didn't remember the number. She just hit the redial on the phone. It was one of her friends, and she tells them in broken gasps that someone is trying to get into her house, and that she needs to get there right fucking now. The profanity sticks out here more than anything else. Who knows? Young brain. But I'm curled up on the floor and I cannot stop shaking. We don't hear anything else until we see the headlights of my sister's friend and her parents driving up to the house. We never did find out who was at the door or why. There was no signs of anything happening but a couple of scuff marks on the bottom back door that we could not remember if they were there beforehand or not. Nothing like that has happened to me or her since, but for damn sure, we never forget to lock the door after that. That is terrifying. That's like for real terrifying too. Like could happen to anybody. Yikes. I'm glad that the friend and her parents came to the rescue there. There's nothing worse than being home alone like that and feeling that vulnerable, especially with the glass doors and everything. Whoever it was could see you guys perfectly. So, that's really scary. I'm glad you're okay. When I was younger, about 7 or 8 maybe, my family lived in this creepy 2-story house that was super old. The basement was never a place I wanted to go by myself, but my dad had a little den down there by our laundry room, so I'd make my way down there when I had to. My great-grandpa had passed just a couple years prior to this due to a heart attack. He loved us, great-grandkids, and would always crack jokes and give us dollar bills or coins. I remember specifically that he had this white collared shirt with 2 or 3 green-blue stripes at the top. One day, it was just my sisters, Mom, and I at home. My mom was in the shower upstairs, and my sisters were upstairs playing in their rooms. My bedroom was on the main level connected to the dining room, which connected our kitchen on one end and the living room on the other. I was looking for either my sisters or my mom, so I walked straight into the dining room to the kitchen. I saw no one. Then I looked over to my left and I I saw a silhouette of a man with the exact same shirt as my great-grandpa, walking from the basement steps to the bathroom hallway in the kitchen. I did a double take because I couldn't believe my eyes, and the shirt looked so familiar. I didn't even realize at the time that it had to have been my great-grandpa because of that shirt. Then it disappeared, and I kind of walked into the kitchen because I couldn't believe my eyes. But he was gone. It did creep me out because I ran so fast upstairs to find my mom, and I still play it back in my head ever so often. Something I will never forget. So cool. He's just coming by to say hello, wearing that striped shirt. I think I'm gonna end this here today with, it's not really a story, but this is a picture caught on camera of a little girl ghost that was taken at the Hotel Dieu, spelled D-I-E-U, Hospital, Windsor. There's numerous appearances of her in the hallway, utility room, and around the old OR, and numerous auditory examples of a little girl talking and laughing in a hospital over 100 years old. This pic was taken by a nurse in the treatment room roughly 7 years ago. Enjoy in 3, 2, 1. Do you see her? 'Cause I did. I think that's pretty convincing, actually. It looks pretty real to me. I hope you've enjoyed all my stories today. You can tell me your favorite one. That'd be great. I'll see you again soon, my little scare bears. Sweet